When a guy reaches out after a period of no contact, it's very rarely just a random act. There's usually a deeper motivation behind it. One of the biggest reasons, and you might not like hearing this, is that he's trying to find out if he still has access to you. That's it. That's the test. He wants to see if the door is still open, even just a little bit. And how you respond in that moment tells him everything he needs to know about how much ground he still holds in your life. Now, he might not even be consciously aware that he's doing this. A guy won't sit there thinking, let me check if she's still into me. But what does happen is this instinctive pull to reach out to test the connection. Not because he's ready for something real, not because he's suddenly transformed into the man of your dreams, but because he wants reassurance. Reassurance that if he needed the validation, it's there. And that's where you have to be very, very careful. He might send you a message that seems sweet, innocent even, something like, hey, just thinking of you, or hope you're doing okay. And your brain goes into overdrive. Oh my God, he's been thinking about me. Maybe he misses me. Maybe this is it. Maybe he's finally realized what we had. But what if I told you that message wasn't really about you? What if it was more about him, about his ego, about calming the discomfort he's feeling because for once you're not available on demand? That's what makes this moment so dangerous, because the test isn't always obvious. He's not going to say, I'm just checking if you still care about me. He's going to wrap it in casual, friendly, or even flirtatious language. And if you respond immediately, if you sound too enthusiastic, if you open the emotional floodgates, he gets what he came for, confirmation that you're still there. But here's the twist. He might not do anything with that information. He might disappear again right after. Why? Because his goal wasn't to reconnect. His goal was to know he could. That's what access is all about, emotional access. Does he still have your attention? Does he still affect your day? Can he still get a response? If the answer is yes, he walks away with a confidence boost while you're left wondering what just happened. And in that moment, you might even feel worse than before he reached out because it's confusing. It gives false hope and it reopens a door that you were just starting to close. The truth is, some people thrive on knowing they still hold power in your life, even if they have no intention of stepping back into it. Even if they've already shown you they're not capable of giving you what you deserve. They don't want the relationship, but they don't want to lose the option. And that's where you need to be grounded. That's where you need to pause and ask yourself, why is he reaching out now? Has anything actually changed? Is he asking for something real, or is he just looking for a hit of reassurance? Because when you don't answer immediately, when you don't jump back into that dynamic like nothing happened, it shifts something. It shows him that access to you is not free anymore, that you're not on the shelf waiting to be picked up again, that you have standards, that you're not interested in being someone's emotional backup plan. And that right there, that's where your power is. Let me be clear. This isn't about playing games. This isn't about ignoring someone to get revenge or trying to manipulate the situation. It's about honoring your progress. You went no contact for a reason. You created space for a reason, whether it was to heal, to gain clarity, or to protect your peace. That choice was a statement, I matter too. So when he tests you, don't treat it as a compliment. Don't treat it as proof that he's suddenly become what you always wanted. Treat it as information. Is he showing up differently, or is he just showing up with the same energy in a new disguise? Because the truth is, if a man truly wants you back, if he's serious, he won't test you. He won't send vague messages or half-effort pings. He will show up consistently, clearly, respectfully. Anything less is noise. And sometimes silence is the most powerful response you can give to noise. That's when he'll realize access to you has to be earned. When you decide to step away, to truly go no contact, something powerful happens. You shift the dynamic in a way that's deeply uncomfortable for the other person, especially if they've grown used to having access to you on their terms. This isn't just about your absence. And often when a guy reaches out after a period of no contact, it's not just because he misses you. It's because he's reacting to a loss of control. Let me explain. Control doesn't always look like manipulation. Sometimes it's subtle. It's the unspoken understanding that he could send you a message and you'd reply, that if he called, you'd answer, that if he wanted a little attention, he knew where to get it, and fast. That sense of access gives someone power even if they're not abusing it. It gives them comfort. It reassures them that you're still there, still emotionally invested, still orbiting around their world. But the moment you go no contact, that comfort is shattered. It's like pulling the rug out from under someone who never realized they were standing on one. You stop showing up, you stop initiating, you stop responding. And suddenly, they're left with a silence that forces them to feel something they hadn't had to confront before. Uncertainty. Uncertainty is uncomfortable, especially for someone who's been in control of the emotional rhythm between you both. It makes them question things. Wait, is she really gone? Did I mess this up more than I thought? What if someone else has her attention now? The guy who was once complacent now finds himself trying to decode your silence. And that's a shift in power. This is why you'll often see someone reach out after a period of no contact, but not in a deeply vulnerable or meaningful way. It might be something casual, a random meme, a hey, saw something that reminded me of you. Maybe even a lazy, you good? Don't mistake this for genuine reconnection. This is a test. It's a temperature check. It's not about love or growth. It's about whether he still has access to the comfort he lost. If you reply right away, if you fall back into the rhythm he remembers, he gets his answer. Ah, she's still there. And once that reassurance lands, he might go quiet again. You've just passed his test. And that means, in his mind, he can still influence your emotions without needing to show up differently. But if he reaches out and you don't respond, or you respond in a way that's neutral, self-assured, maybe even a little indifferent, he starts to feel the impact of losing real influence over you. And here's the kicker. Most people don't test you after no contact to reconnect. They test you to see if they need to. If you're still available, they don't have to change. They don't have to apologize. They don't have to step up. But if you're no longer easy to reach, no longer easy to read, that pressure starts building because now the ball is in their court. Now they have to decide, are they willing to do the uncomfortable thing and pursue you with clarity and intention, or was their interest only ever about control in the first place? There's a huge difference between someone missing you and someone missing the feeling of you missing them. That second one, that's the kind of ego-driven connection that leads to breadcrumbs, half efforts, and the emotional tug of war that leaves you confused and depleted. But when someone misses you for real, when the loss of control leads not just to discomfort, but to self-reflection, that's where the dynamic has a chance to change. That's when you find out what he's truly made of. Because a man who genuinely wants you back doesn't just test the waters, he jumps in fully. He reaches out with clarity, he shows up with effort, he communicates with purpose. There's no vague texting, there's no games, there's no attempts to make you do the work for him. No contact is a mirror. It reflects your value back to the other person by removing the noise. It forces them to either acknowledge what they lost or walk away because they never truly valued it. And the guy who's reaching out just to test you, he's not doing it because he's sure of what he wants. He's doing it because your silence made him feel something he wasn't ready to feel. The loss of control over the version of you who would have once given him comfort without condition. That's the test you don't see. And the truth is, when you pass his test, by not reacting the way he expects, you're actually giving yourself the ultimate power. You're telling yourself, I won't settle for breadcrumbs. I won't respond to confusion. I won't allow someone to stay emotionally close while remaining romantically unclear. And that's how you stop attracting games and start attracting something real. If your silence shakes him, good, let it. Because if losing access to you is what it takes for someone to realize your worth, then they never deserved easy access to begin with. Let silence speak louder than your words ever could. You know what's interesting? Time and silence, two things we often underestimate, can become your greatest allies when it comes to attraction and power in a relationship, especially after no contact. You think silence is nothing, but to someone who once had your attention, your affection, your energy, your availability, that silence starts to feel incredibly loud. People don't start off missing you the moment you walk away, not always. Sometimes at first they feel a sense of relief, especially if things got heavy, confusing, or emotionally charged. They might feel like they've regained control or freedom. They might even feel justified in stepping back. But here's the twist. Give it time, and suddenly what once felt like freedom begins to feel like a void. That's when curiosity creeps in. They start to wonder what you're doing, who you're with, if you're even thinking about them anymore. See, when you were present, consistently responding, reaching out, initiating plans, there wasn't a lot left to their imagination. You were there. They didn't need to wonder. But when you go quiet, when you stop showing up, when you stop feeding the dynamic, it creates space. And that space becomes a canvas for curiosity. And the human mind hates an incomplete picture. We're wired to want closure, to understand, to make sense of the story. When you were available, they wrote the story in their head. She likes me, she wants this, I'm good. But no contact. That story starts unraveling. Wait, why hasn't she reached out? Did I misread something? Did she move on? Was she really over it that quickly? That's when the questions start. That's when the ego gets triggered. Because let's be real, most people are used to being the center of their own universe. They assume others are orbiting around them. But when you disappear, when you stop orbiting, they feel the shift. Your silence challenges the narrative they built about themselves. And make no mistake, curiosity is powerful. Sometimes it's even more powerful than desire. Because desire can fade, but curiosity gnaws at you. It lingers in the quiet moments, when the phone doesn't buzz, when they check your social media and see nothing, or see you smiling and unbothered. Suddenly their mind starts to wander. They want to know what's going on inside your head. But here's where people mess it up. They get the first breadcrumb, the hey, how are you? And they think it means everything. They rush in, they over-explain, they pick up where they left off. But that little reach out, that's usually just curiosity trying to soothe itself. It's not always intention. It's not always growth. It's often just ego looking for reassurance. That's why you need to hold the line. Because if someone is truly reflecting, if they're genuinely starting to miss you, not just the validation you gave, but you, then they'll go beyond curiosity. They'll show clarity, they'll show effort, they'll step into the discomfort of reaching out vulnerably, not just testing the waters, but wanting to swim across the ocean to reach you. Time and silence give people the space to ask themselves important questions. Not just do I miss her, but why did I let her go? What did I overlook? Who was I and who do I want to be now? But they can only ask those questions if you're not right there, filling the silence for them. Because if every time they miss you for a second, they can text you and get a quick hit of your energy, they never have to miss you fully. They never get to feel the weight of your absence. And if they don't feel the weight of your absence, they don't realize the true value of your presence. So when someone reaches out after no contact and you wonder, why now? Understand this. It's not always a sign of realization. Sometimes it's just a sign of discomfort, of unease, of curiosity that couldn't stay quiet. But if you hold your ground, if you maintain your standards, if you don't rush to soothe their momentary confusion, then you give space for something deeper to emerge. Because that curiosity, left unanswered, can evolve into appreciation, into reflection, into real growth. But only if they have to sit in the silence long enough to feel it. Only if they feel the gap between who you were when they had you and who you are now, standing strong in your power. That's the beauty of silence. It tells a story. It says, I don't chase, I choose. It communicates confidence without a single word. And the more someone realizes they can't just snap their fingers and get you back, the more they have to rise to meet you, not as someone testing the waters, but as someone ready to dive in with both feet. Because if they truly want you, they'll prove it, not with a curious message, but with a committed effort. And if they don't, your silence already gave you the answer. One of the biggest mistakes people make after no contact is thinking that the first message from their ex or the first test means everything has changed. It doesn't. In fact, in many cases, it's not a sign of growth at all. It's a sign of strategy. Let me explain what I mean. When someone reaches out after a period of silence, especially after no contact, there's a very good chance they're not doing it because they've had some massive emotional epiphany. A lot of the time, it's not about love. It's about ego. They're not asking, how can I win this person back the right way? They're asking, can I still win them over without really trying? That's the test. It's subtle. Sometimes it comes in the form of a casual, hey, just thinking about you. Or a random meme they know will remind you of an inside joke. Or they reply to your story with a fire emoji. None of these things are meaningful in themselves, but they're strategic. They're low investment feelers to see how you'll respond. If you respond enthusiastically, warmly, or too quickly, they get their answer. You're still emotionally available to them. And what do they do with that information? Often, nothing. Because now they know they can reach out whenever they want and get a little hit of attention from you. It soothes their ego, but here's the thing. They didn't have to commit. They didn't have to be vulnerable. They didn't have to take a risk. You did. That's what a test is. It's a game of emotional chicken. Who will flinch first? They want to see if you're going to break the silence with feeling, if you're going to open up, give a long response, maybe even suggest a catch up. That way, they don't have to make the effort. You do it for them. And the moment you do, you give them exactly what they want without them having to earn it. This is one of the biggest power shifts in any post-breakup situation. After no contact, the dynamic has changed. You were the one who decided to step away, to draw a line, to protect your peace. That's not small. That's strength. That's self-respect. But when they test you, they're not just seeing if they still have a line into your heart. They're trying to get you to abandon that strength first, so they don't have to risk theirs. They want you to do the emotional heavy lifting, because if you do, they're safe. They don't have to put themselves out there. They don't have to say, I miss you. They just have to send a few breadcrumbs and wait to see if you chase the trail. And if you do, they feel validated, not because they're ready to invest again, but because they were able to reawaken your feelings without showing any real commitment. And let's be honest, many people aren't looking to fix things. They're just looking to fix how they feel. They might be lonely that day. They might be having doubts. They might have seen you looking good in a story or heard from a friend that you're doing well, and suddenly their pride kicks in. Wait a second, are they actually moving on? Now, their need for reassurance wakes up, and instead of facing it directly, they test you to soothe that anxiety. But here's where your power comes in. When you recognize this test for what it is, a strategy to see if you'll go first, you stop giving away your peace for a few crumbs of attention. You stop jumping at the first sign of contact and thinking it's the start of something meaningful. Because meaningful doesn't look like one text after silence. It looks like consistent action, honest communication, vulnerability, and effort. Anything less is just noise. And when you don't take the bait, when you don't immediately validate them, you do something powerful. You force them into a choice. They either have to walk away or step up. If they walk away, that tells you everything you need to know. They were never going to do the work. They were never going to bring real value. But if they step up, if they lean in, ask to talk, apologize, explain, take accountability, that's a different story. But most importantly, by not responding to the test in the way they hoped, you show them that access to you is no longer free. It costs something now. It costs effort. It costs clarity. It costs real presence. And when someone sees that, it shifts the entire game. You become someone they can't manipulate with a half-hearted message. You become someone who doesn't need validation because you're validating yourself. And ironically, that's when you become more magnetic. Because now, if they want to connect with you again, they have to meet you at your level. So remember, when that message comes in, when that test shows up out of nowhere, pause. Ask yourself, is this a real invitation to reconnect or just a test to see if I'll break first? Because once you see the difference, you'll stop being pulled into old dynamics. And you'll start commanding the kind of connection that doesn't need tests to prove it's real. Let them be the one who steps forward first. Let them do the work this time. When you were always around, when you were constantly messaging, always the first to respond, showing up in every way you knew how, your presence became expected. And what becomes expected eventually becomes background noise. It's not that he didn't see your value, it's that your value was too readily available. When someone knows they can have you at any time, they stop trying. They stop showing up. They stop earning your presence. But the second you take a step back, truly step back, something changes. That silence, that space, it speaks volumes. And suddenly, your absence carries more weight than all the words you ever said, all the affection you ever gave. Because now, he's not getting your energy, he's not getting your effort, and he can feel it. There's no more validation coming through the phone, no more reassurance that you're still there, still waiting, still hoping. You see, there's something about human nature that makes us respond more to loss than to gain. We only tend to realize what something meant to us once it's no longer available. When someone pulls back, it creates a vacuum. And that vacuum is felt most by the person who used to receive the energy you used to give. He may not have consciously taken you for granted, but now that you're not there, now that your light isn't shining in his direction, he notices the darkness. That absence forces him to recalibrate. He starts questioning things. Why haven't I heard from her? Has she moved on? Was she more valuable to me than I realized? And those questions sting, not because they're romantic, but because they challenge his ego. They unsettle him. The certainty he once had that you'd be there, that you'd respond, that you'd stay available is gone. And that uncertainty can be more powerful than your presence ever was. Here's what's crucial to understand. You don't need to do anything loud. You don't need to post curated stories on Instagram to show you're happy. You don't need to send a message saying, I'm over you. Silence is your power. The absence of contact becomes the most potent message. It tells him everything he needs to know without you having to say a word. It says, I'm not sitting around waiting for breadcrumbs. It says, if you want my attention, you have to show up for it. Now, here's the irony. When you were showing up all the time, it was easier for him to do nothing. You were taking on all the emotional labor. You were making it easy, but now he's got to sit in the discomfort. And that discomfort starts working on him. He might try to ignore it at first. He'll distract himself. He'll rationalize it. She'll come back. She always does. She probably still cares. But as time passes and you stay quiet, that confidence starts to unravel. Doubt creeps in. And with that doubt comes desire. Desire doesn't come from availability. Desire comes from the perception of value. And value is felt in your absence more than in your presence. Think about it. We don't crave what's always in front of us. We crave what feels scarce, what feels special, what feels earned. And when you stop giving your time, energy, and attention so freely, he starts to see that you are not a given, that your attention was a gift, that your presence was a privilege, not a right. And when he reaches that place, when he feels your absence so profoundly that it creates a longing, that's when he may come back, not with a test message, not with a lazy hey, but with something real, something intentional. Because your absence has done what your words never could. It created contrast. Contrast between what life felt like when he had access to you and what it feels like now that he doesn't. And that contrast is unforgettable. But here's the catch. This only works when the absence is genuine. When you've truly let go of needing him to come back. When you're not sitting there waiting for him to notice your silence. When you've shifted your energy inward towards your own life, your own growth, your own joy. Because if you're still orbiting around him, even emotionally, the silence, won't land the same. He'll sense it. He'll know you're still available, just playing a game, and he won't respect that. But when the silence comes from true detachment, from a real place of self-worth, it commands respect. And if he does come back, you get to choose whether he comes back into the same version of you he left, or if you've evolved into someone who now holds a different standard, someone who knows that love doesn't mean overgiving. That connection doesn't mean self-abandonment, that attention, time, and effort must be earned, not expected. So if he's testing you, if he's sending that breadcrumb after a long silence, remember this: your silence is speaking louder than any response you could give. And if you want someone to truly value you, sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is to let your absence remind them of everything they took for granted. Because sometimes it's not your presence that makes them want you, it's your absence that makes them remember what they lost. You see, one of the most misunderstood aspects of no contact is what it actually does. Not just for you, but for them. Most people think no contact is just a strategy to get someone back. But that mindset completely misses the deeper value. No contact is a mirror. It's a pause that allows both people to see clearly, to feel what life is like without the other. And while it helps you regain your center, your dignity, and your peace, it also forces him to sit with the reality of losing you. Here's what's fascinating. When you remove your energy, your availability, your constant reassurance, it creates contrast. And contrast is everything in attraction. You cannot value warmth without knowing what cold feels like. You don't recognize light unless you've sat in the dark. In the same way, he doesn't realize what your presence meant until he's confronted with your absence. In the beginning, he might feel relief. He might think, oh good, she's not texting anymore. I've got space now. He might even interpret your silence as indifference. But that silence grows, and with it, so does uncertainty. He starts wondering, wait, why hasn't she reached out? Was I not that important to her? Has she moved on? Is someone else talking to her now? That silence becomes loud. It becomes its own presence. And this is where the test comes. He reaches out, not because he's ready to commit, not because he's done the deep work yet, but because he's uncomfortable. He's not sure where he stands with you anymore, and that bothers him. Not knowing is a wound to his ego. He wants to know if the door is still open. He wants reassurance. But here's the kicker. No contact also gives him time to reflect. And if there was real substance in your connection, if there were moments that mattered, things he hadn't fully processed, emotions he buried in the name of not ready or needing space, then this silence invites those memories to resurface. See, when someone has constant access to you, they don't have to evaluate what they truly feel. You're always there. They don't question your presence because it's guaranteed. But once it's gone, once you're no longer in their inbox, liking their posts, replying to their stories, or picking up their late night calls, now there's space. And in that space is where realization is born. He might replay conversations in his head. He might think about the way you looked at him when you were trying to believe in his potential. He remembers the effort you made, the patience you showed, the energy you gave without keeping score. He begins to see the moments he took for granted. The things he brushed off as normal suddenly feel significant. And if he has any emotional maturity, that silence can become a powerful teacher. It teaches him that good people don't stick around forever when they're not being valued. It teaches him that the connection he had wasn't common. It was rare. And it teaches him that someone like you, someone with standards, won't wait forever. That's when he wants you again. Not out of boredom, not out of loneliness, but because he's felt the loss. And if he's grown enough during that time, that want may come from a more grounded place, less about testing the waters, more about building something real. But here's what you have to remember. The silence will only teach him something if you stay in it long enough. If you break it too soon, if you respond to his first breadcrumb text, if you meet him halfway before he's done any real introspection, you rob him of the chance to feel the weight of your absence. No contact isn't a punishment, it's a boundary. It says if you're not going to step up, then I'm going to step back, not to make you chase, but because I refuse to pour into something that's not pouring into me. And if he reaches out after that, really reaches out, not just testing, not just poking, but showing up with clarity, with intent, with the kind of energy that says, I see what I lost and I'm not here to play anymore. Then, and only then, does it make sense to open the door a little. But if he's only testing, if he's only flirting with the idea of you without actually choosing you, don't confuse curiosity for commitment. Because someone who genuinely values you won't need multiple tests. They won't play games. They'll come correct. And if he doesn't, that silence wasn't wasted time. It was your greatest filter. It told you everything you needed to know.